Hi, I'm Bang, and this is MoshPod. I'm here with my buddies Governor and Big Ass Tony. It's awesome to have you with us for our very first episode of our first podcast. We love our podcasts, and between us we listen to a lot, so we're going to bring together a selection of great podcasts every episode to give you busy people a variety of light brain food. We're going to start with a few episodes on some general topics to give you guys a taste of the kind of stuff we're into. Then in the future we plan to do a fortnightly or a monthly episode, drawing just from new pods that have been put up in that period, so you stay up to date with the best pods all in one place. Links to all the pods we use will be in the notes, so if you like what you hear, you know where to go for more. Let's get right into our first episode. We've called it Mind the Bug. Part 1. This is from This American Life, number 12, Animals, Act 2.
You know, usually when we see pictures of animals, they're fluffy and cute, or they are noble and dignified. Well, compare that to this set of photos by Catherine Chalmers. In this first picture, we have a caterpillar eating a tomato, a brightly colored close-up of that. The second picture, a praying mantis eats the caterpillar. And in the third picture, a tarantula eats the praying mantis. Catherine Chalmers takes these pictures in her own apartment in New York City, where she also raises the animals that she feeds to each other. Paul Tuff stopped by for a visit.
Growing up, Catherine Chalmers wasn't really an animal person. She always had a pet or two, nothing unusual. But then a few years ago she was working on these sculptures where she would take dead insects and glue them onto plants and flowers. She needed a lot of dead flies, more than she could buy anywhere, and so she decided to start raising live flies in a glass cage in the corner of her apartment. She would just let them breed and wait for them to die. But then one day she picked up a camera and looked at the flies through a close-up lens.
And the world changed, because instead of just seeing patterns of swarming flies, I saw leg hairs and genitals and mouths, and I saw them. And I saw them, their lives, how they would kind of greet each other and what they would do. And, I could see them being born. I could see them having sex. I could see them eating. I could see them flying. I could see them hanging out. And it was great. It was fascinating. So I'd sit there for hours, or until they went to the bathroom on the glass enough I couldn't see anymore. And that's when I kind of got hooked into animals, I don't know, past a certain point of return.
She realized that there were two basic moments of life that she couldn't see in the fly's cage. She couldn't see them eating, and she couldn't see them dying. So she came up with this project that she called the food chain. She decided to raise a few different animals, caterpillars, praying mantises, frogs, spiders, and take pictures of each animal eating the one that came beneath it in the natural food chain.
When I first thought of this project, when it kind of first dawned on me what I was kind of fishing around for, it kind of made my stomach hurt. The idea of raising animals to be eaten, and to photograph them, specifically to be eaten, was repugnant. It made me kind of sick. But the more I thought of it, the more interesting I thought it was.
And so Catherine began to fill her loft with animals. There isn't much furniture, but every surface has got terrariums and cages on it. Frogs and mealworms and a snake on one table, goldfish in the kitchen to feed the frogs, crickets, which chirp constantly, a tarantula, and 2 cages full of mice. On a spare corner of the table where the frogs and the snake live, she's got a light box set up, and we sit down there to take a look at some of her pictures.
So, this is basically the food chain.
The photos don't look like normal nature photography. They look more like fashion shots. The animals are brightly lit and sharply focused, pictured against a clear, white background.
It starts with caterpillars that eat tomatoes. Praying mantises eat the caterpillars. And my original idea was for the tarantula to eat the praying mantises. But spiders are really undependable predators. So
If there were two emotions competing in Catherine Chalmers, her fascination with the food chain and her disgust with what she was doing, it becomes clear to me as she shows me her work that in the end her fascination won out. She lays out a sequence of shots that begin with a praying mantis about to attack a caterpillar.
That's the part that's really great, is she springs on it and she wraps her arms around it and she just starts biting into it, and the thing's live and it's still kicking. And with the caterpillars, since all they do is eat, basically their body is just one long digestive system. And so whatever they are eating, as soon as she bites into it, it just spills out. So if they're eating leaves, it's when she bites into it. And this was totally surprised when this first happened. It comes out the color green, or it comes out bright red, the color of the tomatoes, or it comes out bright yellow if you're feeding them yellow tomatoes. So I did different sequences of caterpillar with different colored guts coming out, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was really, I didn't know that an animal eating something live could be so attractive. I mean, it was like spilling a tube of paint out on a white piece of canvas. It just blobs out, and it's gruesome if you think about it in terms of your brother or your sister, but in terms of the fact that it is an insect and we seem less attached to the insect world than certainly the human world, it was very beautiful.
You'd think it would be easy to take pictures of predators eating their prey. That's what they do, after all. But it turns out to be more complicated than just putting a couple of animals together and snapping away. There are considerations of timing and staging. When she tried to have frogs eat the praying mantises, the problem was the frogs were simply too fast. Photo 1 would show a hungry frog and a praying mantis, and Photo 2 would just show a well-fed frog. Then there was the tarantula problem. Tarantulas can go for months without eating and days without moving. She'd put the spider and the praying mantis up on her set, and the tarantula would just stare at the praying mantis, completely still, one leg in the air, for hours. Finally, in one session at 3 a.m, after staring through her camera all night, Catherine got what she wanted. She slides the photos onto the light box.
You see the shot where the two of them are looking at each other, and then basically the spider pounced on it and flipped it over, and the praying mantis is upside down, looking straight at you, and perfectly alive, looking at you as the spider is munching on the middle part of its body. And then you see his head, and his antennas are waving around, and then it's slowly, the head gets drawn more and more into the jaws, and it's still alive. And then the spider basically kind of mushes it up into like a ball and extracts the juices out of it. And it took maybe 3 or 4 hours for it to eat the whole thing. And for at least half of that time, the praying mantis was perfectly alive. And it was hard because you'd spent so long raising this thing. It was really hard to see it being eaten alive like that and having it take so long.
At this point in the food chain, her pictures were becoming more and more vivid, but so was the suffering that she was watching through her lens.
I got attached to the praying mantises. Yeah, seeing the praying mantises die was definitely much harder than seeing the caterpillars die. Unlike most insects, they have a head that moves, like ours does, on a neck. And so they turn and they look at you, and they've got these big eyes sticking out, and they have some of the characteristics of the things which usually win human sympathy, which is big eyes and kind of an expression. And their mouth is red on the inside, so when they would eat something, it looked like they had red lipstick on. It was much easier to get attached to them.
One of the things that the food chain photos have made Catherine think about is how we humans choose which animals we love and which ones we hate. The distinction we make, basically, between pets and pests. She says most of us are attracted to animals that are like us, that are mammals, that have round faces and big eyes like human infants. And she's not immune to that instinct. Her favorite animal is her dog, Leo. But she also finds herself drawn to the animals that we are supposed to fear, and the moments in their lives that we usually turn away from. At the lightbox, she puts down 4 new photos from a different project, a series of shots of 2 praying mantises having sex.
So that's the female. That's the male. She's a lot bigger. Then they mated. Look like a nice happy couple. He has green eyes. She has brown, and
So he's on top of her.
he's on top of her, and it's just like classic, doggy style sex position. And they stay that way for hours and hours and hours. I mean, I'll take a few pictures, I'll come back in 20 minutes, take a few more pictures, come back in 20 minutes, take.
Isn't that kind of rare for animals? I thought animals were sort of do it quick.
So did I, especially insects. I don't know. I mean, I think it's somewhat rare. I was surprised. I mean, I've waited 4 hours and finally just went to bed and woke up in the morning and the male was nowhere to be found, But then one time she instead of him getting completely off of her, she caught him and wrapped her arms around him like she was holding him around the neck like that, walking arm in arm, and she just started eating him. Couldn't believe it. I've done that. I've mated them 2 years in a row now and hadn't had them, do that.
The photos aren't exactly grisly. There's no blood, not really even any color, but they're still pretty disturbing.
You see, he's still kind of halfway on, and she reached around and grabbed him by the neck and bit his face off. See, he has no head there.
What's that?
Oh, that's one of his arms. There was kind of a fight. It's like the tip somewhere. And she's eating straight down his abdomen. See, he's already past his waist. Whatever. She finished when she got there. She even ate some of the wings, munched on some of those.
And when does he die?
When does he die?
Do you think he's dead there?
Well, insects, it's like their bodies are more democratic. They don't have a central nervous system kind of the same way we do. I mean, you bite their head off, and the whole theory is that, see, their body keeps functioning. So she can bite his head off when they're in this position having sex, and he continues to have sex with her and continues to give her sperm, which is wire, whatever they call it in bug stuff. And there were some scientists who measured the inside of her cavity, and when she bit his head off, when she bit his head off, she got more sperm. So his head actually acted as an inhibitor, and when that's gone, then she gets the rest. So in the cases where the female bit the head off, she actually got more sperm. I suppose, theoretically, therefore, more of her eggs are fertilized.
What do you mean his head acts as an inhibitor?
Well, he's very cautious around her, and where his caution seems to originate in his head. So at this point, he's definitely still alive when she's only eating his face off.
At the center of Catherine's studio, there are 2 glass cages where her mice live. There are about 20 mice in each cage, of all ages. Some have just been born, still nursing from their mothers. Some pregnant. Some have been around for a few generations. It's the nicest part of the studio. The mice are all very clean and healthy and cute, and the cage even smells good. These mice are the centerpiece of Catherine's current project. She photographs them being born, and then photographs them being eaten by various predators.
G'day, Bang here, with my partner in crime, Big Ass Tony.
Oh yeah, this is Big Ass Tony, in the house.
Hope you liked our YouTube sample of MoshPod. To hear the full, free episode, go to moshpod.wordpress.com or click the links below. Please comment, like, share and subscribe.
Open your mind.